Hey everyone, welcome to this brand new episode of Phenoms. In today's episode, we're super lucky to have Asad Tirmizi with us. And he's actually joining in from California, which is awesome, right? He just raised $6.2 million as a seed round for his startup, T Robotics. Asad, welcome to the pod. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much, Mark, for having me over here.
Thank you too for joining in. Before we begin, can you tell us a little bit about your life before you even started getting into the world of startups?
Absolutely. So before I started this company, I've been in the research space for all of my adult life. So just to dig into the background, so I started with a bachelor's in engineering, aeronautical engineering. I was always interested in the control side of things, and that is what brought me to do my master's in Sweden, where was introduced to robotics, and I made this shift from aircrafts to robotics. And robotics, like, was in your life you have these instances where you find a subject that you just naturally gravitate towards. So robotics was a subject like this. One thing led to the other. I enrolled in my PhD program, and that made me move to Italy. That's where I finished my PhD in robotics, robot control systems. And the story of my PhD is very intimately connected to the story of the company because that's where I met my co-founder as well, and we were investigating the same topics that eventually became the seed for our company. And so after my PhD, I moved to Belgium, where I was a tenured researcher for 6 years, looking at intelligence of robots. And the topic that I was working on that caught the attention of the Silicon Valley folks. So I got a job here at a company called Vicarious, which was later on acquired by Google, and still working in robotics. And then my last job was at a company called ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, that
Wow.
also have a robotics and virtual reality program. So that was my last job. And it was there where the idea that I've been working on for 14 years, me and my co-founder, we have been researching on, like, okay, how can we bring the intelligence to a level where they can really have a deep impact on the manufacturing industry. All things fell into place, and then one fine day, I just opened the company, and things started rolling in the entrepreneurship direction.
That's insane as a journey so far. And I'm just curious if we go way back in time when you were
Right,
still way younger, if I was a
right.
buddy, back in kindergarten, like how were you? Do you remember?
Right. So I think there were two things that defined my childhood, So one, I was a very active child, and the other thing was I was a very curious child, So when you have like the combination of these two things, so what it essentially meant was this, that I was always out and about, like being in places around me. It could be sports fields, it could be factories, it could be just like how things work. And then there was this natural curiosity to understand how these things work, So I think these two things played a huge role in my journey as a CEO and founder, because there were two skills that I learned during this childhood phase. One was the interpersonal skill, because if you open a startup, one of the most important things is how can you convince other people smarter than you to join in on the mission. And you can't do this if you don't have interpersonal skills, if you cannot, let's say, relate to other people and speak their language and make them interested in something that you are interested in.
Yeah.
So that was one key aspect of my childhood, that I always had this way with people, understanding them, and being able to, let's say, align with them for greater goals.
And
And yeah,
I'm
please.
just curious, when you were a child, did you ever dream of building robots one day or just contributing to their technology?
Yeah, so robots like came later in life, but I do remember the first time that I thought about building a product or a company was way back. I'm talking about 90s,
Oh.
1990s, where I had like my first computer and it had a mouse. And I was always wonder like, why is it that the mouse has only two buttons, like why can't I do more with the mouse? And then
Mm,
like Microsoft Windows was like the operating system I was using. So I remember like the first, let's say, product that I ever dreamt was a better operating system for the PCs with a better user interface. I mean, I was very young over there, so of course, nothing really materialized. But like, I would say that like even on in younger days, I had like this urge to build something that is used by many people.
Oh, that's definitely something that defines you today, right? Like I definitely feel
Right.
like I can feel the vibe. And do you remember at what age approximately you had this desire to get into engineering? Like it was it already
Right.
at 13, or did you feel that as you were approaching university? Like how did that happen?
Right. So for me, I was naturally good at physics and mathematics. So this was something that came naturally to me. Like I could say this that when I was studying physics, I could imagine the interaction of forces and
Nice.
wrenches and velocities, So there was something that um, if a physics concept was explained to me, I could imagine it in my head. And when I could imagine it in my head, I could like solve it and connect it better to the larger physical world.
Hmm.
I didn't think much about it like at that time, but the reality was this that like consistently I was getting better grades in physics and mathematics.
Hmm.
So when the time came to like choose my path forward, engineering was the natural path. And at that time, it wasn't just about engineering, but engineering a system that I felt deeply impressed with. So aircrafts was I mean, I think like there are very few people, even though aircrafts are so common, yet there will be very few people who do not find them impressive. So as a
I'm
child,
not
I
one
think
of
I
these
was
people. I love aircrafts. Just so that you know, I'm a crazy fan of Flight Simulator, and my mom was
right.
an aeronautical engineer, so big
Wow.
fan here. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I found like aircrafts very impressive. So that was just the natural because I was good at those subjects and I was impressed by aircrafts. That's how I ended up in aircrafts. But later on in this journey, I found robotics and I found them even more impressive than aircrafts. And
Yeah.
that's how I ended up here.
And I'm curious, throughout your career as an engineer, did you have any, spider senses coming to you randomly during your life where, okay, maybe I need to switch over from aeronautics over to another field such as robotics? Like, what were the signs of life that led you there?
Right. So I remember it like yesterday, that moment, like, because originally I started doing my master's for aircraft control systems. But the problem with aircraft control systems was this that like you were limited to simulations. Like, I mean, my university didn't have an aircraft that like they will go and fly and you can see the effect of what you're doing. And this is what like gravitated me really towards robotics because the control problem or the intelligence problem is the same. But with robots, you have like a robot right in front of you. And I think the turning point for me was to design a system and then deploy that system on a robot. And the feedback loop was so fast. And then when you would like look at the impact robots can have on human lives, that was the other thing that really inspired me to make that switch. So I wouldn't say that there was a spider sense that was like developing over time, but it was more like a spur of the moment, like, oh, this is cool and I'm enjoying it. So let's do this. And, and that one decision just changed my life forever.
And I'm
Yeah.
curious, maybe your family was invested in the fact that you were super into aeronautical engineering, and when you
Right.
switched over to another field, were they going like nuts and letting you know that okay, it's not a good idea, you should stop? Like, did you have any resistance there?
Yeah, no, so I think like originally I come from Pakistan, so there is a stereotype about South Asian parents that they are really invested
Yeah.
into engineering or medicine. So as long as I was an engineer, there was never really a problem. But like these more granular changes, like whether I'm doing aircraft engineering or robotics engineering, so there was my family has been very supportive. My parents, both of them, they sacrificed a lot to make sure that I went to the engineering school.
Can you tell our viewers the biggest sacrifices they made so that you could make it?
Right. So I think there was always a very intense focus on that. Whatever is needed for me to become a better engineer and have a better shot at life. They always made sure that it is prioritized over any other need of the family. So when I was growing up, I didn't see my parents like, buying anything for themselves. But if I needed any expensive books or calculators or computers, they would always be made available, but with a very, let's say, strong sense of, hey, we are investing this in you so that like you can have a better future and you can do better for humanity in general. So there was always this very strong sense of purpose that I'm part of a long chain of generations, who incrementally did better so that I can come to a point where I can create an impact that is useful for humanity. And I think that sense of purpose still remains.
And do you have these interesting conversations with your parents now about your startup? Like, how do they feel about it?
Yeah, I think like initially they were very skeptical because I had like risen up in the ladders to become a good engineer, a senior engineer. So, especially like when I started working for big tech, the paychecks and these are golden handcuffs, right? Like, the salaries are pretty amazing. The benefits are really amazing. So, uh, for the first time in my life, I was living, as you say, the high life, where it was a nice apartment in San Francisco. The holidays were really nice and lavish, and of course, like I also uh, contributed to many things that were close to my parents and my heart. So when I came up with this idea that I'm gonna leave all of that and start my own company, it of course came as a shock. I
Yeah.
think my parents coming from the background that they come from, a secure, well paid, respectable job, that's the ultimate like goal that a man has to or a woman has to achieve. So they were very surprised, but I think like the other side of reaching the top as a engineer is this, that you get good at things and then you are doing those things repeatedly, and the impact start to, or the challenge or starts to become less and less. Like for example, when I was doing my PhD, it's very tough because a lot of these things were new for me. I wasn't good at them. I was learning them. But the challenge was very interesting. Like you go every day to work and you're working on a problem that, you have no idea how to solve. So there was this natural curiosity that would be stoked every day. But once like, you get to this comfort zone, I mean, I'm a big believer that when your job starts feeling very comfortable, then probably it's time to change, because if you stay comfortable, then the decline starts. That's how I look at it. But more importantly, like for me and my co-founder, Lars, it's been a 14-year journey where we were investigating this particular problem of robot intelligence. And we always knew that there would be a day when the time is right for this technology. And as you can see right now, like, robotics and physical AI, that really is the next human frontier. So
Absolutely.
we had kind of a 14 years head start on this. So it wasn't like, for my parents, I believe that it was a very, they were very like surprised that I took this decision. But for me, I always believed in this, that, okay, we did a lot to reach over here, and this is going to be a good decision.
And do you remember when you were going through this journey into robotics? At what point did you decide that you're going to spread your wings and fly on your own without a secure job and just start your own business?
Right. That's a very interesting story. So I was working at ByteDance. This was the highest paid job that I ever had in my life. And I was, let's just say, very well paid. And I used to like, my between my home and office, it was in San Francisco downtown. And I would pass the Salesforce Tower every day when I was going to work. That's for those of your viewers who don't know it. Like Salesforce Tower is the tallest building in San Francisco. It's a beautiful building. So now the founder of Salesforce, Mark Bernioff, I had read his book.
Hmm.
So I knew his story, and I always, whenever I would pass that
What
building,
year was this in approximately?
we're talking about like, before the formation of the company. So we are talking about 2022,
2022.
2023,
Okay, yeah, got it.
we founded the company in February of 2024.
Okay.
So we're talking about a few years back.
Mhm.
So, uh, so every time I would pass this building, I would say like, wow, I know the story of the founder of Salesforce, how he started and how he was. It was for me that building represented a belief in yourself that like if you are good at something, you believe in a problem and you find a solution, you can create an institution. So Salesforce today is an institution. And that tallest building in San Francisco is kind of a mark of celebration of that self belief.
Yeah.
And I would always be passing that building and I would be saying to myself, like, I spent 14 years in robotics and like, I could create an impact with this technology, but instead I'm more interested in the
Mhm.
free food at my big tech company. And this would like always pinch me a lot, like,
Mhm.
that you only get one main inning of your life, where you can do something impactful. And I didn't think I'm doing justice to the knowledge that I had and the network that I had. And one day that feeling just got too big to ignore and decided to open the company.
That's impressive. Can you imagine that Mark Berniev, back in the days before he even built the building, he didn't know that once he had built it, some people would be passing by and starting companies just because they're looking at the building, you know? It's so
Right,
impressive. So
right.
this is crazy stuff, right? Like it's definitely gold what you're sharing here. And at this point, so you started the company and you probably were up against plenty of challenges. Just a quick note, I did read the book myself too. I love the book. For those that didn't read it,
Yes.
absolutely check it out. It's on Amazon.
Right.
It's a 10 on 10, basically. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So, what were the biggest challenges when you got in the first steps of starting up T Robotics?
Right. I think like for anybody who is a first time founder coming from a deeply academic or research background, there are like some fundamental mistake that most of us make, which is this, that you think technology is everything and everything else like marketing, sales, and like, um, I think the fundamental problem that I had was a intense focus on just the technology and not thinking that like, hey, in our new capacity, we are not building just technology, we are building a company, and a company is much more than fundamental technology
Yeah,
work. And one good thing that I had, which basically created the biggest challenge for us, was a clarity on what we need to do, right? So robotics, we know, is a space that if you just look at the demonstrators in robotics, they can be very impressive and they can fool investors, they can fool general public into believing that something very useful is just around the corner. And in robotics, the real challenge starts when you go out from demonstrators into the real world, into the real homes, the safety aspect of it. You're like dealing with a physical system that literally, if it malfunctions, can kill a human being. So it's a very big responsibility that you have.
yep.
So For me, the biggest challenge got introduced that we knew that the technology that we have created is the fastest way for AI to create a mark on robots and be taken to the end users. So basically, we believe that we have the shortest path to go to the market and start capturing customers and bringing a moat. So
Hmm.
I was always averse to the idea of creating flashy demonstrations, and I wanted to build with customers, at the customers. And this really meant that when you would look at the initial capital, like typically, like you create like these uh, demonstrators to show what you are capable of doing, and that gets you that like first injection of capital. And we just had like a completely different mindset around this, that like we will bootstrap and we will
Yeah.
really just do whatever we need to do to take it to the market. And only once we have the product and a market and the customers, then we will raise the money. Otherwise we risk that we will raise money without knowing where to spend the money. So my biggest challenges was on how to like survive on very little and do something that is very capital intensive. Yeah, and that the first, let's say the first year of the startup, I don't want to like relive that ever again.
I love that. And a lot of founders are watching and they're mostly early stage, right? Because 90% of startups they'll maybe stay pre-seed and maybe they will keep bootstrapping. So, do you remember when it was super early as you were bootstrapping? What was the most difficult moments? Like, can you recall the nights maybe you suffered, maybe you were thinking about why am I doing this or I'm just going to quit? Like, do you have those moments?
Of course, I mean, I think every founder has all these stories. I think a lot of us would who take the plunge eventually, they are looking at these initial signs of hope about what will work.
Mm.
Sometimes you are looking at some friends and family that like they might be able to support with some initial cash
Yeah.
injection. You are looking at some colleagues, former colleagues, that you believe that they will believe in you and would join you. You're looking at some initial customers, that you believe you have a relation with them in the past that might take that first believe in you. So there are like really a lot of ifs that you have a hope would work, and then most of them they don't work out the way you want them to work out.
Hmm.
So there are many, many, many like difficult instances. It's just if you're becoming an entrepreneur, it's a journey of hearing many no's, feeling very disappointed after every no. But the main, I think, capability or capacity that you have to like build is this, that like no should be able to bog you down. You should like,
Hmm.
your motivation is the biggest asset that you have. And if you keep that motivation high and you keep going at it, things start opening up. My one of the biggest learning I've had in this journey is this, that people really respect when they see somebody hustling,
Yeah.
trying hard. Not many people do that. It's just in human nature that when we see somebody grinding, it can be the poorest person in the world, but you develop a respect for him, that okay, the person is on a mission. So you just have to keep going at it. So I think your question was on like what were some of the toughest instances
Yeah.
like this. I think the very first tough instance was I had saved a couple. I think I had saved from my job something like 150, $200,000. Which was for my house down payment. Like me and my wife, we had decided that we would buy a house from this.
Oh my God. Don't
And
tell me
then
you. Oh my God. No.
no, I mean, any story of my company is incomplete without my wife.
No.
I wouldn't be here without her,
It's
because
bittersweet.
I told her this, that hey, this is our home down payment money, but I need to use this because I think like we can build a company out of it. And I mean, there's a
That's
reason your
big.
wives
That's
are
big.
Yeah, yeah, that's super huge, super huge. I
Assad,
can't be enough.
most people would never do that. We're talking about, you're acting like the 0.0001 percenters out there, which would take this crazy risk. And plus, your girlfriend, she supported you.
Yes, yes,
impressive. And most people
yeah,
would call you completely crazy. But if we fast forward, look at you now. That's it's completely mind blowing.
right. And sometimes the founders get all the limelight, and like people who equally took very tough decisions, especially like your partners, in this
Yeah.
case, my wife. Just going and telling her this, that we may will not be buying our home, but we will be investing in a company. I mean, there's no words I have in which I can properly thank her for that,
Mhm.
But the reality is this, that like I took that money and I started like, investing it into the company.
Wow.
And I thought that it took a long time for us to like save 200,000. I think that
Yeah.
was the amount that we have. And the first month when $30,000 went out of the window on basically, and I was looking, wow, like
Uh-oh.
where did that money go? Because
Where
just
did it go?
initial and I like
30K is big. I mean, do you remember what did you spend
right,
it on? Was it the office
right,
deposits and all that, or?
right. It was an aggregate of every single thing because one of our early team members, uh, he was very critical for us to bring on in. But he was in a situation where that he was not the founder, and he had like some uh, like financial obligations. So the only way we could have gotten him in was by giving him a salary. And it was one of the best decisions that we ever took, because without him there would be no company. So like from day
Incredible.
one, paying a proper salary to a colleague, and then robots are in general like expensive. So just having access to the robot, we did not buy a robot, and then like the lawyer fee, the
Mhm.
website, the like all of these things, they accumulate, so I think like in a matter of a month or 2 months, $30,000 were out of the window. And I still remember like I trying to do the math on this, and that was very depressing because it was just tough, that like, oh, how do we keep going from here? I think that was one instance. The other instance that really, I would say, scared me was when my co-founder, he was a professor in Norway's largest university, technical university. It's called NTNU, and he was a believer. And the day he left his job, that was very scary for me because the first thing that came to my mind was that, hey, until now, if this thing didn't work out, only I was sinking. And now, because of
Yeah.
me, a very good friend of mine, his and his family might suffer. And that was like, a big responsibility on my shoulder that, hey, I can't fail because I can't drive another family very close to my heart through this. So that was that. And then there are like many others, like, I mean, the first investor calls that we had, I completely bombed it. I didn't know what to tell them. The first customers, they were like, hey, who are you guys? So that there was just like a huge series of disappointments that eventually led us to learn how to like yeah, like those failures, as much brutal as they sound, they are very essential part of them. If I wouldn't have gone through it, it would not, let's say, make me the founder or CEO I'm becoming right now. I'm still not like, I wouldn't say I'm somebody who is in a position to give an advice at this point. I'm still pretty early, but let's just say that where we are sitting today, it would not be at this stage, and if we had not gone through those failures and developed that character and thick skin.
My God, that's gold. What you just mentioned, literally. I think a lot of people just forget about these little things in life where imagine you have two doors in front of you. One is safety, and the other one is just a
Yeah,
ring of fire. And the safety
right.
represents a potential house, and the ring of fire, it's your deposit, your mortgage, whatever, going into a risky project that might never see the you know light of day, which is completely crazy. So of course everyone's gonna press on the safety button, but this little pivot that you did, it completely changed probably the course of natural history because you're gonna influence so many things now with this technology you're putting out there. It's completely crazy. If anyone went to your website, they would instantly see the huge potential. Where I'm just gonna break it down as I understood it. You basically write what you want to do, or what you want the robot to do for you, and it's gonna do it just without uh, putting in coded instructions. Like literally, it understands hepatic natural languages. You can just teach the robot visually with your tech, which is completely nuts. It's crazy what you're
Thank you
doing.
so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and this is
thank
the
you so much.
future. So, anyways, before we jump into that, how long did you stay bootstrapped that way until at some point you're like, okay, you know what? We absolutely need to raise. This is time. Let's do it.
Right, right. So we realized that in the first few months, that the way money is going out, you cannot
Yeah,
stay bootstrapped for long, right? And there were only two ways out of it, that either you sell your way out of it or you take a capital injection. But at this stage, it was also becoming really clear that we are a bunch of uh, very deeply ingrained researchers, who are trying to run a company. And we need to very quickly get our act straight on things that are really needed for a company. So the people that we need, the aspects of company like selling, the aspects of like maturing the product, and and then also with the investors, the initial talks that we had, we didn't know any investor, so we really were looking like, okay, how do you, like for us even, how do you get introduced to a VC? That was really a big thing, like we didn't know basically anybody in the valley or any other place. So
crazy.
there were a lot of like critical informational issues, things that we just didn't know about. So uh, combined with like us running out of money and like how big was our dearth of knowledge around like how to build a company, we started to like look for guidance, like that there must be somebody who should like guide us in a proper way. And we always knew that we are very hardworking, we are smart, so we will learn our way. So we were looking for a free robot that we can test our software on, and then we happened to go to University of Berkeley,
Hmm.
thinking that it is a public university, so they might be able to give us some robot time. And when I was there, and this is like where I think the greatness of the ecosystem in the Silicon Valley kicks in, that we started talking to some person in Berkeley about a robot in their robotics lab that we can use. And this person just like was like, okay, who are you? And I told them, who are we? And they're like, oh, wow, what have you guys done? And we just showed him like some stuff that we have done, like that initial demonstrator. And this guy just picked it up in like a flash, and he's like, oh wow, like that thing looks really amazing. Where are you guys in this journey? And we told them exactly. And then they said like, hey, University of Berkeley has a world class program called Berkeley SkyDeck,
Mm,
where essentially that's what we do: take deep tech companies and make them into successful companies.
mm,
So if you come in, we'll give you I believe it was a $200,000 pre-seed, that will give you that, and we'll give you an office space, and we'll give you 6 months of training with basically people who have done this many times before you. And the moment this offer came in, I was like, no, we really need to take this offer, because we need, number one, I can't sponsor this company just on my money. So we need some little capital, and I need access to this, how do you say,
infrastructure.
cluster
Yeah,
infrastructure of advisors, founders,
yeah.
investors.
The
I
ecosystem is
wouldn't
there.
lie. Yeah. And I wouldn't lie, like that 6 months that I spent at Berkeley, I absorbed everything. Like, I mean, I was thirsty, I was hungry, and the results were then really, and that's when like things like really picked up
Wow.
because
Wow.
all of these things they just clicked into place very
Mm,
quickly. Like, we have a great technology. We have put together great people who are believers, who I can't pay, but they see the technology and they see the potential of it. So they are just like not getting paid and they are with us. So even at that point, we were like, what, six PhDs, some of the best roboticists who had joined us already. And then once found my act, or I put my act together, thanks to like, that guidance from Berkeley, then things started falling really in place.
hmm. That's a completely insane jump on the open doors. People,
Right,
this is exactly what Assad is saying here. He was exactly at the right time, the right moment, with the right people. So take
right,
chances, absolutely jump into the fire. And do you remember
right.
that 200K from SkyDeck? How long did it take to actually receive that money in your bank account, approximately?
Yeah, so they were very fast. So before even the program started, we had like that money, and that was number one. The money was game changer as well for us because 200,000 was just the right amount of money for us to put a basic infrastructure in
Mm,
place. It was enough for us to hit our first customers, get like
right.
uh, revenue coming. It was just the right amount to understand, and then like the entire ecosystem over there, like your first website design, then your first marketing campaign. So there was a big pool of advisors over there that you could tap into, and I still have like a really great contact with the people who advised us. And no, in general, like even today, it's an ecosystem. You benefit from that system, and then you give back to that system. So now I often go back to Berkeley SkyDeck to like communicate with the new founders and
Oh,
like
nice.
tell them what I've learned. Again, with a disclaimer that I'm still too early to be of any fundamentally life changing advice, but it's like more like sharing our journey and hoping that like it benefits the younger founders, because what's important is not T robotics or me, but what is important is that this circle of innovation, it continues, and it can only continue if there is a steady stream of founders who get supported by former founders and then get investors who kind of like complete that loop. So
Yeah,
just playing my role in that already.
absolutely giving back. This is so important in our super tight knit community, right?
Right.
Founders, we're lonely in our journeys most of the time, so it's important to support each other, like literally. If we don't do that, who
Absolutely.
will, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
And quick question: the first initial customer that you had, can you share the story of how they became
Right.
customers? Yeah.
Right. So uh, it was after Berkeley SkyDeck. And we had like learned a lot even at that point that we cannot, let's say, go to the like we knew this, that what stage our product has to be in uh, before we start getting the customers. So there is always like this sweet spot where that there is enough functionality in this product that it can start becoming useful. And I think this, people often mention this go to market phase. I also believe that there is a very strong go to product phase, and it's like this: the sooner you start this cycle of iterations, the better your product becomes. So the first customer story is this: that we found out from one of our friends that there is a machine shop that has invested in a robot a few years ago, and they thought that like, hey, now we have the robot and the robot will now do the machining, but they didn't understand, or the salesperson that sold them the robot didn't tell them that how difficult would it be to program the robot, and number two, how dumb the robot is. Like if you don't program it correctly, it can just make. I mean, it can be more detrimental than useful. So they had actually like had a robot, but they had stopped using the robot. So we just like actually
Huh.
walked in there and we're like, you know what, like we can make that robot work, and not just work, but make it work like no other robot works in the world right
Wow,
now.
that's
And
insane.
these guys were like, okay, this thing is just lying around here. It's doing nothing. So if you say what you do, we will become your first customers. Uh, and that's how we like, got our first robot that we had unlimited access to. But the other great thing that it did for us was this, that like we were building with the customer because we were
Yeah.
sitting in their premises. And that's what we did for 2 months. Like we were sitting at their premises, building with them, getting instant feedback, getting
Wow.
instant iteration. And I think that was really a turning point for us, because once that iteration started coming in, the product came to a point where it became this like minimal marketable product where we can take a version of that product and take it to many other customers. And once that started happening, then I mean, some really cool things happened to us as well, because the next thing that happened was this, that essentially what we are doing is we are combining artificial intelligence and robotics. So essentially, it's not just this that the robot can talk to you or can understand you, but based on that understanding, it can carry out a task intelligently. So the actual training of how the robot behaves when a task is given to it. This is really the main IP or the main technological challenge. So the next big thing that happened to us after this customer was this, that in industrial robotics, you have like a few big companies that make 90% of all robots.
Yeah.
They're like ABB, Yaskawa, Kuka, Stobly, So ABB, which is a very big name in
Huge.
robotics, I think they are one-fourth of all robots in the world are ABB robots, or somewhere in that vicinity, one-fifth. And they recognize that, you know what, like the days of these complex programming and the robot having very limited capability, they are over. So they launched a worldwide challenge, which
Mhm.
is called a ABB Robotics AI Challenge. So the idea is, which is the company that has the best artificial intelligence for robotics? And the moment they launched this challenge, I still have those screenshots saved from my co-founder, because he's Norwegian, so he speaks very less. So he just sent me a small message with the link to this challenge, and he said, like, we will win this. He just said this.
I love that.
And,
And he
and
doesn't speak English well. That's what you're saying, right? Like he's just, we're gonna win
he
this.
speaks he speaks very good English, but he speaks less. He's just by like culturally, or like the way he's like raised up, he speaks less. So he's a very, let's say, intelligent, but like on the quieter side of.
But when he does speak, he speaks volumes, right? Like,
When he does speak, he's the voice that I trust and
mm,
believe in the most. So when he sent me, we will win this,
that's it.
in my mind, I already knew that we will win this. And
I
that's
love that.
exactly what happened.
Wow.
That's exactly what happened. There were 211 startups, some really big name startups who competed with us.
Hmm.
And then we came up on the top, and that really like changed
Wow.
everything, because now not only do we have customers and a product that we can replicate, but we are also we won and competed against like some of the best startups in the world, and we won that, and we got a partnership with ABB
Hmm.
that just started like this, how do you say, like flywheel of growth, that we are still capitalizing on. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive to be honest. I'm just in shock. It's something that every founder probably wants to live, and you went through this journey. And do you remember at what point you were like, okay, boys, we really need to sit down and go ahead and chase investors for our seed round? Like, how did that happen?
Right. So this is again where I give like a lot of credit to Berkeley SkyDeck,
Mm,
because I always thought that having conversation with investors is the goal after, like you create the company, and you just have to keep chasing them around. But what I realized in Berkeley SkyDeck was this, that venture investment is like any other investment. Like if you go to a bank to get a loan, there are certain rules that they might bend a little, but there are like these unsaid rules about what is a good candidate to give how much loan. And what I recognized after talking to so many founders and advisors was this, that the the exact same is the case with venture investment as well. Like, just by pure charisma or a good story, uh, you might get lucky, but to really seal the deal, there is certain performance metrics, and then there is a certain narrative, and there's a certain total addressable market
Hmm.
TAM that, like, you can affect. And until or unless like these things are in place, there is no use. You're basically wasting your time by having these conversations. And what I also recognized early was this, that the more option you give the investors to prolong the process to invest in you, just by mere nature of this kind of investment, they will like to take as long as they could so that they have
Right.
as many metrics as they
Yeah.
can on you before they invest. So if you really need the money, then it's better that you look at all the people that are interested in that space, you get them together, you work very hard to get the metrics, that prove your narrative, and then you take the best deal out of it. So essentially, like, we did not like look around or shop around for investors. We stayed very focused on our partnerships, our customers, our product, our team. Everything is team. I can't like just stress on how important getting the right people. And this is one of the biggest challenge, for early stage startup, getting the best people. If you have the best people in the world for your domain, it's a given that you would be the best company in the world. So we focused on that. And then Berkeley SkyDeck, what they do is that they arrange a investor month where they send information about your company to a lot of investors. And before they even do that, they kind of arrange a meeting or mock session with actual angel investors. So I think the first inkling that we are going to be a special case is during the investor month, that when we were talking to the angels who were supposed to just give us feedback on whether we are a good venture case or not,
Yeah.
we talked to two, and both of them just wrote us a check there and then. Like it was there and
Yeah.
in that meeting. And
Amazing.
I was like sitting in that meeting, and I'm like, wow, is that really happening? Did this guy just gave me
Oh,
$100,000? So I think that was the first inkling.
damn.
And the second thing that we really then knew this, that we are something special, was when we went into the investor month. Typically you get like 20, 30 conversations after this huge emails that they send to many investors, and we got into 191 conversations. So these are 191 different VC firms who wanted to talk to us.
Wow.
And I had like
Jesus.
6 weeks where I would wake up at 7 a.m., 6 a.m., and until 7 p.m. So 12 hours I was talking straight, like half hour, half hour, half hour.
Did you drink a bit
Uh,
of water or not really? That's a lot
I,
of
I think
talking
like,
there.
you saw like, like
Yeah.
now I cough when I'm speaking. I think like I never really recovered from that 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, when I see that calendar, or some of my colleagues, who could see my calendar, and they would like see how like stacked it was. So just the amount of talking I had to do, that was like really intense. But once like, we went through this conversation, like it was like 10 days after finishing our program at Berkeley, we had our round put together, and then we were looking for 5 million initially. We ended up with 6.2 million total, so we were oversubscribed as well. So things went well. But I would like add a note over here, that after going through this journey, what I recognized was this, that if you stick to the first principles, that's the way you build a great company. Raising around, often entrepreneurs think this is the main success. It's a great thing for you. Like, yeah, I mean, before that, we were planning for survival. Now we are planning how to thrive. Before that, not only were the founders giving immense sacrifice, but also the employees. They were giving immense sacrifices. It brings me a lot of joy that now everybody is on a very good salary in our company and have, like a good standard of living. But that's not the goal. The goal is always building a solid business. And sometimes raised money, borrowed money can give you this illusion of
Mm.
success. Remember this, that making an investor invest in you, that's not like the end game. The end game is to create a product that really changes the world. So that's how we looked at it. We raised it. We didn't like next day we were back to work. We didn't I mean, it was a good thing, but it was not something that defined us. What defined us were our customers, our product, our team, and we just stay focused on that.
I love that, Asad. And by the way, I really think this seed round was inevitable with the amount of talent that you guys had at Berkeley. It was just, absolutely inevitable. So huge congrats on that. And can you share with
Thank you so
our,
much.
my pleasure, can you share with our audience the amount of no's that you got through those meetings? Because you had like 190 meetings. You probably had a bunch of no's in there.
Right. So I think like the main no's that we got, or the ones that were painful,
Hmm.
was early in the days when
Mm.
essentially it was just an idea. And so that was before Berkeley SkyDeck. And this is, I think, one of the main learnings, that if you look at it from the investor's shoes, it's not like they are saying no out of a habit, but the reality is this, that they really have to pick out the winners. And if you put their shoes on, a winner appears not every day, like it's once in a while that a winner appears. And once you have like done enough work that proves that you are realistically, you have a very good shot at becoming the winner. The reality is this, that like it's not many no's that you hear. So I talked 191 when we closed the round. We were still in talks with around 141, I would say. So there were 141 conversations going on, which could have led to an investment. So there were like these 50 odd no's, but these weren't even like no's. They were like, hey, we need some time.
Mm.
We are growth stage. We are this. So there wasn't like a single brutal let's say no that like I remember, but like the ones that I remember are those that happened when we were completely unprepared. We were just we didn't know what to tell, what to focus on, and that was really in the early days before Berkeley SkyDeck.
Oh, this is completely nuts. And do you mind sharing with fellow founders listening in, how do you get to pick the right investor when you have so many interested ones?
Yeah, I think like I don't have a good advice on this, because the reality is this, that we just got very lucky. It's not like we ran a big due diligence process.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I think that one thing that we did differently was this, that I'm a big believer in a fair deal. uh,
There you
and do not generally, I do not like since the valuations and the fundraising, they are a means to an end and not our goal. So I always treated it like this, that hey, my success doesn't come from fundraising. My success comes from making a company that becomes a global powerhouse one day. So this is one step in our journey. And if we can make this company into a powerhouse, all of us will win: the employees, the founders, and the investors.
go.
So it was in my interest as well that our investors get a good deal. I remember like when people found out how many investors are we talking to, and then we have picked two of them.
Wow.
They were like, hey, go and shop this term sheet around and try to get like this bigger and bigger valuation. And I was completely adverse to this idea, because I chose my investors based on how they treated us, how they shared our vision, and how much we thought we could work with them. And we didn't like, I mean, at seed stage, what can you like, you can change it from 25 to 30 million in the larger scheme of things. If things work out, like this is a negligible difference.
Mm.
So this is what I focus on. And because of this focus, we got, I think, like one of the best investors in the valley, to work with us. And as you will see how things are developing right now, because they are developing very fast, you see, like once you get the right people on board who share the mission with you, they take ownership of that mission. So it takes, like, a lot of responsibility away from the founders and share that responsibility with really brilliant people. So again, we stuck to the first principles approach, gave everybody who worked with us a fair deal. And I think this is one of the reasons why things have went so well for us for now.
That's gold. Do you remember the day that you received the funds in the bank account?
Yeah, I think it was the first check arrived on 21st of December. And then there was a holiday period, and the second check arrived on the first week of January.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
nice way to start out the new year, huh?
Yeah, yeah, but that, like, I remember that last year's Christmas holiday was one of the most busiest one, because the reality is this, or at least for us, the reality was this, that once the money hit, it wasn't like a surprise for us. We had like gone through a long
Hmm.
diligence process, so we knew that, like, it's coming.
Hmm.
But what happens is this, that once the money comes, then the clock start ticking on a completely different expectation level.
There you go.
Like, just look at it this way, that before that we were in survival mode. We were like planned for 15 days, but we had come to an equilibrium where we had like very little money, we would spend very little, and we could like stay like that for a very long time. And now, like this money comes in and the expectations now grow, like, hey, there are now these new sales targets, there are now these new infrastructure targets. So you basically shift gears. That's how I look at rounds. You shift gears from a pre-seed company to a seed stage company with real goals. And that's what happened to us. So there was, let's just say, like no big celebrations, no big holidays. It was like, all right, money's in, tomorrow is another day, but this time we are looking at a 18-month, 20-month time horizon to do something bigger.
And do you remember in the past 2 years, what do you observe as the biggest mindset shifts that you currently have?
I think like there are two big mindset shifts, like one of them, the first one, I already kind of knew about it. But the longer your job as a founder is to keep your company in business for as long as possible.
Hmm.
If you can pull that off, eventually this company will find a crevice or a path to greatness, So a lot of time entrepreneurs things that, like, oh, we start and something clicks immediately and then there is this hockey stick. I don't believe in that. I'm actually scared of hockey sticks, because if you with a little amount of effort can achieve a hockey stick, I would be worried about it, because what's the moat? What's the barrier of entry to that hockey
Mhm,
stick? Why
mhm.
can't somebody else do that? So I like steady growth more than this. So number one is this, that your job is to stay in business and grow yourself and your business. That will be number one. And number two is this, that your people, your team is everything. I can't just overemphasize that. And a lot of people say this, but what I understood in this period as a personal growth is this, that once you get the right people in, you have to take a long term view on those people, because what you're essentially demanding from them is to come and play a role when you are essentially nothing as a company, then you transition into something as a company. So there is a lot of like pivots and growth humps that like these people have to go through, and you must have a long term vision to grow with them. So you just don't grow the company, you grow the people into like bigger and newer roles. So the long term view that you need to have for the people, that's something that I realized in this journey.
I love that. It's absolute gold for the founders listening in. You can already adapt to this type of mindset shift. And also, in the beginning, before we even started recording, you mentioned that you've set yourselves some interesting targets. Can you tell us about those sales targets and how they went? I think you said it went almost too well.
Yeah. So I think like every time you raise a round, you have to kind of give this financial model and projection. And typically, like these projections are very rosy that you give to the VCs. I don't think the VCs expect you to like achieve those rosy targets, and neither I think the founders. I mean, it's just how the industry works. That like you give the projections, and then you figure out like how much of that you can achieve. Let's just say if you don't achieve your first year targets, nobody's going to be super mad at you because they want to give you this time. So this was similar for us when we were giving our first year targets to our VCs. We were like, hey, hell, can we do this crazy number? Because I don't think so we can. And then we raised our seed in January. Like that's when the money hit. And I think 3 months into the seed round, we looked at our numbers and we had blown past those first year's projection by 300%. And in the
Congrats on
era
that.
of
It's
AI,
incredible, you guys.
thank, thank you so much. Thank you so much. In the era of AI, this now looks like a norm, but the reality is this to pull it off in robotics, which is traditionally a very hard market for sales, and the sales cycles are very long. I think that was quite crazy, that this happened so fast. So because of this happening, I mean, what is clear to us is this that what we have made, it brings a lot of real benefit for our end users, and the end users want it. There is a big demand for it. Then we have entrenched ourselves into the ecosystem of manufacturing where nothing like this really exists. It's wide open for AI to make a mark in manufacturing. Many startups are claiming it, but what they don't realize is, or I believe what they don't realize is this: the technology is one aspect of it, but integrating it into a legacy ecosystem so that everything runs like a well oiled machine, that's where the real challenge is. So for us to like, have entrenched in ourselves with some really key partnerships with some of the biggest names in the industry, and at the same time delivering on the sales target with happy customers, that have put us in a very nice place. I think there will be some developments that might be happening in the coming months for us to grow even further.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have a part two regarding that announcement because, yeah, the investors listening in, clients, and even fellow founders, I think you would be absolutely stunned by what you will hear in the second episode with Assad that we're going to do. But we can't really go into that for now. Um, I have a quick question for you though. The
Sure.
biggest life change that you've made so far to yourself, like I'm talking about the morning routines, what you consume as information. What were the largest changes so far?
Right. And this is the sad part of the story because the biggest changes are actually the sad changes. Before that, I was very big on exercising, and I would just be honest with you, like, because I don't want to, like, just say all the great things that happened in this journey. One of the biggest sacrifices for me is this that my health from a activity point of view has taken it all. I
Oh,
typically my day at like 5 a.m. in the morning, and then I'm working till like 8 p.m., 7 p.m. That's like a typical day. So Yeah, so
That
because
hurts.
we start with our European colleagues as founder, CEO, I have to like really see what's going on over there. Then I switch to the American colleagues. So
Mm.
typically it's a very long day and I don't find time. I mean, I've tried, I'm really made my mind that very soon I will block an hour and no matter what happens, I will exercise. So please, if you're a founder listening in, try. I think you can achieve the same in 24 hours that you can achieve in 23 hours. So 1 hour should be for your health. And I've not done that. So this has been one thing. The other thing that I would say is that affects me is that like I had my first child, my first son,
Mm, congrats. Yeah.
3 months ago.
Wow.
So because of the long days, I feel that like I don't get enough time with him, but like he's the main reason why I want to finish
Oh,
work and go home because it's really nice to spend time with him.
yeah.
Uh, so that's like on the personal side, but like what it has on the positive side as well. I would say this that it's an unconventional answer to what you just asked. But the best thing about becoming a founder and a startup is this that you wake up in the morning and you have a million problems, but these are all problems worth spending time on.
Mm.
How do you grow sales? How do you grow your product? How do you grow your technology? And what I've noticed is this that, like, if I am discussing a meaningless problem, I get really annoyed and bored about it, and it doesn't affect me anymore. Like the other day, somebody was asking, did you get invited to that wedding? Or I'm upset that like somebody didn't invite me to their birthday. And I just found out, or I realized I was thinking about it, that these minor things, they don't affect me anymore. You know,
Mm.
I'm like so focused on my mission and my real problems that whose birthday it is or
It's
who's
impossible. Yeah.
like it just kind of like they are they become meaningless, you know. So one of the best things that my startup have given me is problems that I wake up to, and I'm proud that I have those problems. I mean, what could be a
Wow.
bigger problem or a nicer problem than bringing intelligent robots that serve humanity to the world? And I'm very thankful company for giving me this opportunity to think about this day in and day out.
For sure. And I just realized your son is gonna be the coolest kid on the block. I mean, come on, his father runs, an AI robotics firm. Come on, this is amazing. So yeah, he's gonna be super, cool. That's
No, I
awesome.
would say my son is a uh, he's a gem already. Like, you know, he I was preparing myself for many sleepless nights, but he's a very calm baby, and I'm very thankful to my wife to spending, you know, being such an amazing mom as well. So yeah.
Well, imagine he's gonna see this interview in the future, and he's gonna see you young building out something amazing that already probably changed the world in the future, and he's gonna say, "Okay, my dad did that. That's amazing." So, yeah, it's great that you shared this with us. And I'm curious, at this point, do you have a vision for the next 3 years of T Robotics? Where is it gonna go? Is it going to be international? Is it going to stay in the States? How are you seeing the technology evolve?
Right. So when we started the company, we knew very well because of this European and American connection that the problems in manufacturing and industry are same in Europe and America. Like it's just like you look at the basics of it, and the basics are the same. And typically, we see most companies starting off in US and avoiding Europe until a later growth stage because of various reasons. I mean, this could be regulations, this could be just unfamiliar territory. But we knew this that, like, you know, because of our European backgrounds, we know very intimately the European power structure and the way to do business in Europe.
Hmm.
So we said like we are not gonna kick the can down the lane and make it a growth stage problem. This is our early stage problem. So we are already fully operational in European Union
Nice.
and US. Some of our best customers are in EU,
Wow.
Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Portugal, Spain. That's all places where we are doing business. And it has been one of the and really, if you're an American founder, I would just say this: don't ignore Europe. Like sometimes you can build an American company just by customers in Europe, uh, and especially like if you're a company in robotics. Europe is more of a manufacturing continent than America, so you're ignoring a big chunk of the market. So that's regarding internationalization, that's in our DNA, and we will always stay like this. Regarding where we see ourselves in 3 years, uh, we have hyper focus on bringing AI to the manufacturing sector. So if there is an industrial robot working in manufacturing, this is our space, and we will move with hyper speed and with a lot of, let's say, focus, bringing in the best people from across the pond to our company to make sure that the products for the industrial robot and their intelligence coming out of T robotics, they are world class, and they actually make manufacturing better. So we see ourselves right now very heavily involved in the machining sector because that was the beachhead that we selected. But as we go forward, we will be adding more and more skills for the robots that can affect more of the industry at large.
My God, I love that. We need visionaries like you to go into this unpredictable future that we're heading into. And I'm curious if you could whisper to yourself just one thing at day one of building your company, what would it be?
That's a good question. I would like to think about it before
Sure,
I answer.
take your time.
I think the one thing that I would whisper to myself is this: that there will be many people who have founded great companies. There are many people who are billionaires, and like a lot of time, like I or us as founders look towards them like, oh, this is like, what is at the end of this journey, like, that you become a billionaire uh, or like this exited founder. And I, after like meeting so many of these exited founders or billionaires in this journey, I've seen something opposite, that when they see they are somebody who have played their innings and now are just sitting on the sideline. They have done the job, they've done their part. And I feel that they look at us who are actually right now grinding through the to create a better world. They look at us and I think that they find it they aspire that they can live through what we are
Uh-huh.
doing, because at the end of the day, what we are doing, this is the best work of our life. This is what we will be defined for. So I think rather than what I would whisper through into my ear is this: that rather than looking at this imaginary gratification at the end of the journey, it is this day in, day out grind where you are building something special with the people you love, with the people you aspire to work with. This is the really special thing. And I would take a moment to enjoy this more. Uh, yeah.
Wow, that's definitely gold. I appreciate the answer. Thank you. And before we wrap up, if investors or even clients are watching this right now, what's the easiest way to get in contact with you or your sales team?
Right. So I think our website, www.t-robotics.ai, it has a contact us form. I look at every single sales query. So that's the best way to reach us. If you're an investor, you can also look me up on LinkedIn. Um, but I would say, like, if you're a customer or somebody interested in robotics, I'm more interested in you rather than somebody trying to invest in us, because I think like we've come to a point where things are quite okay. But I usually talk to everybody who is interested in the company. So please feel free, and especially also like if there is any founder who's listening, who's going through a hard time. I mean, we've all gone through this. So in my priority metrics, founders are pretty high. If ever any founder reaches out to me, I make sure that I always reply and give him time, because There were many instances where a lot of very established founders gave me time
Mm,
to make me learn what I know now, and I have to give back. So they are on top of the priority. Number two is my customers, who are everything to us, and investors. And these, I mean, I'm very thankful that we live in a world where visionaries and founders can find the investment that they need to grow the company. But they want to connect to me. I think I'm sure they'll find a way.
for sure they will. Probably LinkedIn is the best way.
Sure.
Yeah. And yeah, this was an amazing episode, in my opinion. So I really appreciate your answers and your transparency here. And everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us for this Phenoms episode. Please, if you found that this was valuable, hit the like, of course, subscribe, and hit that little bell icon. All right, and see you in the next one. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you too. Cheers.